looking at a clock that's not set to current time. It's 12:30. I thought I was going to get to bed before midnight. Yeah, I do, the older man said with a grin that embarrassed Mark again. I better call the command post, Jim said. Gunny's probably having a cow about now. Thanks, Jim, Mark said. I forgot all about that. I'm going to get my ass chewed real good when we get home, I bet. Jim walked over and got the radio from Olga. Mark watched him carry on an animated conversation over the radio. He couldn't tell what was being said, but he figured Gunny was pretty mad. Billy asked the obvious question. Who's Gunny? He's our security chief, Mark explained. He's an old retired gunnery sergeant from the Marine Corps. He's older than the devil and twice as mean. Sounds like a good man to have on your side. Yes, he is, unless you piss him off. Mark was the one grinning now. The two men talked for a minute more. Jim came over and interrupted. Gunny said he wants us to come home. In fact, he told me to tell you he wants us there RFN, whatever that means. Jim shrugged his shoulders. It means right fucking now, Mark whispered to Jim and Billy. They both laughed. Listen, Billy, we're having church services at Silver Hills at 10:30 in the morning and dinner at my house after that. I insist you all come so I can thank you and your men properly. I don't know what we'll be having for dinner, but I'll make sure it's good. Sounds good, Billy said, but tell me, can I wear my spurs in this church? You can wear your spurs and your hog leg. Then we'll see you tomorrow, Karate Man. Don't be late, Billy the Kid, Mark called out as everyone lined up to move out. Jim was on point, and one of his guys was bringing up the rear. Mark's team was in the middle since they'd seen enough adventure for one day. This gave Mark some time to think about the guys who were checking them out. He really needed to talk to Gunny about what he thought it might mean. Before he knew it, they were home. Gunny was at Mark's house. Mark noticed his truck and the Blazer were gone. He asked about them, and Gunny said he had to send some guys out on an errand. Mark wondered what it could be, but he didn't want to tick Gunny off anymore by asking. The old fart surprised him by not immediately ripping him a new one, but he did want to debrief the team while the events were still fresh in their minds. They all sat down on the back porch around the picnic tables. Mark told most of the story, trying to play down the parts that made him look good. Jess and Susan made sure to fill in any part they thought he didn't elaborate on enough. Jim even told Gunny and all the others, who somehow miraculously showed up to hear the story, about what Billy the Kid had said about Mark. Gunny finally commented, Sounds like you all did okay. You should have called me at first contact, but other than that, not too bad. Lucky that Billy came along, though. Mark couldn't believe Gunny was being so un-Gunny-like. However, the old Marine started again and then paused. Uh-oh, Mark thought. He's fixing to drop the other combat boot. I would like to hear what our guest expert has to say about you, Karate Man, Gunny finished. Mark wondered what guest expert Gunny could be talking about. Maybe it was Rob or Kurt, but Mark didn't know who else would have much constructive input on what had happened. I think he's a butthead, said a voice coming through the screen door between the kitchen and the back porch. The voice was familiar, but Mark couldn't figure out who it could be. It didn't sound like Kurt or Rob. He's always been a butthead, the voice continued, and he'll always be a butthead. Mark jumped up and spun toward the door. It opened, and a tall, very thin, bearded man stood there in ragged clothes. Mark ran up and almost tackled a haggard-looking man with a bear hug. It was his brother Mike.